Good morning. Continuing our talks from the last session, social cost benefit analysis. Now we are talking of types of social cost benefit analysis. There are four major types of SCBA which can aid in decision making. Ex ante SCBA. This type of social cost benefit analysis is conducted before the start of the project. The findings of this type of social cost benefit analysis is input for authorities to make decision about the project regarding continuous or otherwise and about the quantum and timing of allocation of funds and resources. The second type is ex post social cost benefit analysis. This type of SCBA is undertaken after the completion of the project. The timing of undertaking this type of SCBA is crucial, as some of the outcomes, positive or negative, will only be evident after a lag of time. Important point in ex post SCBA is that by the time this exercise is conducted, all the costs are sunk, meaning that all the resources allocated has been used. Therefore, on current allocation of resources for the project. This SCBA may provide benchmark for future similar kind of projects and reveal what to do and not to do for future projects and policies. Third type is in media res SCBA. This type is planned and conducted midway during the project policy under investigation. This type of SCBA has two main benefits. First, it reveals whether or not to continue and allocate further resources. And secondly, midway correction to reduce or expand the scope. The findings of this exercise can also be used for ex ante analysis of future projects. And the last one is comparative SCBA. This type of SCBA compares the finding of ex ante benefit analysis with that of ex post or in media res SCBA. This is mainly done to evaluate the efficiency of ex ante and in media res SCBA for decision making and evaluation. This kind of SCBA will also pinpoint the accuracy of assumptions and estimates used in ex ante SCBA. Basic steps of SCBA. Conducting SCBA is a detailed and time-consuming, complex, and is often based on assumptions. In order to make it practicable and manageable, the whole process is divided into 7 basic steps. The first one, define policy and counterfactuals. Any project policy starts with defining a problem or opportunity. For example, recurrent floods can be a problem, and generating hydroelectricity from the same source can be an opportunity. Once the problems and opportunities are clearly identified, define policy, project, alternative solution, and counterfactuals. Counterfactual is the situation where nothing is done to tackle the problem or cash on the potential opportunity, implying status quo is maintained. No intervention by the government. It is also described as do nothing or do minimum situation. Second step is identify which section of society gains and which loses. All the people affected by the project policy should be in the reference frame of analysis. SCBA is often conducted with national perspective because action of one department agency can impose costs and benefits on the nation as a whole, including taxpayer. For example, multi-purpose irrigation projects, that is development of inland waterways, etc. Third, identify the cost and benefits, the impact categories, classify them and select measurement indicators. Cost and benefits needs to be identified comprehensively as possible given the constraints and shall be characterized in terms of impact on people that are measurable preferably in monetary terms. For example, in India, government are running programs on universal immunization, polio eradication, TB eradication, and more recently on COVID-19 vaccine. Here, impact should not be measured in terms of cost incurred by the government, but by the cost saving by the population as a whole due to decrease in infant and maternal mortality, reduced mortality, savings in medical expenses, and increased earning of individual due to non-occurrence of these diseases. As a general principle, only real cost and benefits which affect real resources should be taken in consideration. The fourth step is predict the impact quantitatively over the life of the project. Once the cost and benefits have been identified, the next logical step is to quantify the impact for each time period during the life of the project. This step is important, but at the same time is difficult and complex when projects are unique. This has long time horizon and the relationship between various variables, inputs as well as outputs are complex. Monetize all impacts. Once the impacts are quantitatively assessed, the next step is to convert these impacts into a monetary unit. Quantifying direct costs is a simple task, but quantifying associated costs like environmental, social, and other impact is a difficult and complex exercise. The value of output can be measured easily through appropriate demand curve if the market demand curves exist for the output. But in absence of market curves or poorly functioning market where market prices do not reflect the social cost and benefits objectively, willingness to pay is estimated by indirect methods. Sixth step, discount benefits and costs to obtain present values and compute net present value. In order to assess the total impact of the project, we discount the cash flows occurring in different time periods in order to calculate the present value of impact due to the project. Here, one important consideration is about the discount rate to be used. This calculation of net present value we have discussed in MAPF 001. But here, this is calculated by actually the formula of compound interest. The present value is really principal, and we calculate the principal amount of the future value. For example, if rupees 100 is invested for 1 year at the rate of 10%, after 1 year it will become 110. After 2 years, it will become 121 at the 10% compound rate of interest. In other words, 110 after 1 year, the present value is 100. 121 after present 2 years, the present value is 100, and so on. Last step is perform sensitivity analysis. Sensitivity analysis is performed by changing the values of certain key parameters and recalculating the net present value based on altered values. Sensitivity analysis will reveal what will be the net present value in case the assumptions on which net present value is calculated deviates. Sensitivity analysis is important due to the uncertainty associated in predicting the project cost and benefits. The sensitivity analysis may reveal that under what circumstances the projects with the highest NPV may not be feasible. Conceptual foundation of social cost benefit analysis. Whether to use social cost benefit analysis as an additional tool for decision making or to completely avoid it broadly depends on the objectives of the policy or project. However, if it is used as input for decision making, we shall be very clear about the conceptual foundation of this method. The broader objective of SCBA is to measure the inefficiency of alternative projects, and in context of SCBA, efficiency is described in terms of Pareto efficiency. Pareto efficiency is described as an allocation of resources. Pareto coefficient, if no alternative allocation can make at least one person better off without making anyone else worse off. If the projects have positive social net benefits, then it is possible to estimate a set of transfer or side payments that are Pareto efficient. These set of transfers will make at least one person better off without making anyone else worse off. Valuing benefits and cost. The main of SCBA is to estimate the changes in net social benefits arising out of proposal policy project. The change in net social benefit is derived from the difference between total consumer benefits and total production cost. These two variables are directly associated with the changes in social surplus. Social surplus is sum total of consumer surplus, production surplus, and government surplus. In the form of a formula, we may say social surplus equivalent to consumer surplus plus production surplus plus government surplus. In case no impact on government surplus is observed, then social surplus equal to consumer surplus plus production surplus. Valuation methods. So far, we have discussed about measuring the social surplus based on known demand and supply curves, based on assumption of preferred markets. But in real economic situation, they rarely exist, and markets are often distorted by some kind of market failure, such as monopoly, information asymmetry, externalities, public goods, etc. In these situations, where the observed price of goods and services do not reflect their social values, or for more complicated observed price just do not exist, we use different techniques to measure the benefits, which are as follows. The first benefit is correcting market price for distortions. In competitive markets not distorted by taxes or subsidies, the market price of goods and services provide the best estimates of benefits. However, if markets are distorted, economic prices need to be adjusted to quantify cost and benefits. If taxes are imposed, consumer pays a higher amount than the market price by the amount of taxes. In case consumers forego their consumption of certain goods and services, the benefit associated with change in level of consumption should be measured as gross of tax values, as the willingness to pay for these goods and services is inclusive of tax values. In case of subsidies, the cost measure should be the sum of the market price plus subsidies. Taxes need to be excluded from cost. In case of regulated markets, SCBA shall include the cost created by regulations. In case of labor market externalities may be created due to regulator actions like unemployment allowance or deployment of labor in employment generation schemes. These regulatory actions distort the opportunities cost of labor, and such distortions shall be factored in social cost benefit analysis. Second, revealed preference method. These methods are used to estimate the value of non-market goods such as health, environment, and other goods by observing the actual choices made by individuals in related markets, which have some of the associates attributes under study. That is how these non-market goods affect the prices of market goods. Price differentiation in market goods having certain attributes or not having certain attributes provide estimates for willingness to pay and willingness to availability. Choice modeling method. Any project or policy can be characterized as a handle of attributes, some attributes being more desirable than others. For example, project to clean rivers may have certain attributes take clean water, reduction in odor, development of aquatic life, development of inland waterways, etc. And each of these attributes will have different utility for different people. In this method to estimate the value of the attributes, the questionnaire presents respondents with a series of alternative description of project and policy, and each alternative description varies the level of attributes. And then respondents are asked to rank contingent ranking, choose choice experiments, rate contingent rating, or choose then rate paired comparison, the alternative description. From these responses, WTA and W2P estimates are made. Benefit transfer method. In this method, information from already done studies is taken as a proxy for the value of non-market goods. However, these estimates cannot be exactly the same under all circumstances. Before using estimates from other studies, following precautions should be taken. The reference study should be of the same nature as the present project or policy. WTP and WTA should be comparable to the project policy issue. Now we come to the second part of today's talk, today's counseling. Investment decisions, risk, and uncertainty. Long before the development of capital assets pricing theory, which says that the equilibrium rates of return on all risky assets are a function of their covariance with the market portfolio. Smart financial managers adjusted for risk and capital budgeting. They realized intuitively that if other things being equal, risky projects are less desirable than safe ones. Therefore, they demanded a higher rate of return from risky projects, or they based their decisions on conservative estimates of the cash flows. Various rules of thumb are often used to make these risk adjustments. For example, many companies estimate the rate of return required by investors in its securities and use this required rate of return to discount the cash flows on all new projects. Since investors require a high rate of return from a very rich company, such a firm will have a higher company cost of capital and will set a higher discount rate for its new investment opportunities. Capital Asset Pricing Model, CAPM. CAPM approach is used to estimate risk-adjusted discount rate for making investment decisions. It is a theory about how the prices of risky financial assets are determined in the capital market. The notion that each company has some individual discount rate or cost of capital is widespread but far from universal. Many firms require different returns from different categories of investment. Discount rate might be set for different investment purposes as given below. Speculative ventures 30%, new product 20%, expansion of existing business 15 or company cost of capital, cost of improvement, known technology 10%. In brief, the main insights of CAPM are investors need to be rewarded for systematic risk only because unsystematic risk can be reduced to zero through diversification of investment portfolio. A security's systematic risk is measured by beta value. The required rate of return on a security depends on riskless rate of interest, the market risk premium, and the security's beta value. Measuring beta and capital assets. Now the question arises how to use beta pricing model to help cope with risk in capital budgeting situation. The main problem is how to estimate the discount rate. Discount rate is a risk-free rate plus project beta of the difference of market rate of return and risk-free rate. In addition, in order to do that, you have to figure out the project beta. It is a difficult problem, so much so that many people hope it will go away if they ignore it. They may go away, but unfortunately, the problem won't. Any investment decision that is made contains an implicit assumption about project risk. Stability of beta over time. Sharp and Cooper provided an extensive study of stability. They divided stocks into 10 classes according to the estimated beta in that period. Each class contained 1/10 of the stocks in the sample. The stock with the lowest betas went into class 1. Class 2 contained stocks with slightly higher betas, and so on. And class 10 contained stocks with the highest betas. They then looked at the frequency with which stocks jumped from one class to another. The more jumps, the less stability. One reason that these estimates of beta are only imperfect guides to the future is that the stocks may genuinely change their market risk. However, a more important reason is that the betas in any one period are just estimates based on a limited number of observations. If good company news coincides by chance with higher market returns, the stock's beta will appear higher than if the news coincides with low market returns. we can twist the other way around. If a stock appears to have a high beta, it may be because it genuinely does have a high beta, or it may be because we have overestimated it. This explains some of the fluctuation in betas observed by Sharp and Cooper. Suppose a company's true beta really is stable, its apparent or estimated beta will fluctuate from period to period due to random measurement errors. Therefore, the stability of true beta is probably better than Sharp and Cooper's results seem to imply. Business and financial risk. A firm's assets beta reflects its business risk. The difference between its equity and assets beta reflects financial risk. More debt means more financial risk. In many ways, we have given an oversimplified version of how financial leverage affects equity risk and returns. We have said nothing about taxes, for example. The finer points can wait. For now, there are really just 2 points to remember. First, financial leverage creates financial risk. The beta of the firm's stock increases in proportion to the amount borrowed. Second, asset betas can always be calculated as a weighted average of the betas of the various debt and equity securities issued by the firm. Of course, it is the assets beta that is relevant in capital budgeting decision and not the beta of the firm's stock. What determines assets betas? Stock or industry betas provide a rough guide to the risk typically encountered in various lines of business. What should we do if our assets has no such convenient price record? The advice is to search for characteristics of the assets that are associated with high or low betas. We wish we had a more fundamental scientific understanding of what these characteristics are. We see business risk surfacing in capital markets, but as yet there is no completely satisfactory theory describing how those risks are generated. Nevertheless, some things are known. Cyclicality. Many people intuitively associate risk with the variability of books or accounting earnings. However, much of this variability reflects diversifiable or unique risk. Loan prospectors in search of gold look forward to extremely uncertain future earnings. But whether or not they strike it rich is unlikely to depend on the performance of the market portfolio. Even if they do find gold, they do not bear much market risk. Therefore, an investment in gold has a high standard deviation, but a relatively low beta. What really counts is the strength of the relationship between the firm's earnings and the aggregate earnings on real assets. We can measure this either by the accounting beta or by the cash flow beta. These are just like a real beta, except that changes in book earnings or cash flow are used in place of rates of return on securities. We would predict that firms with high accounting or cash flow betas should also have high stock betas, and then the prediction is correct. This means that cyclical firms whose revenues and earnings are strongly dependent on the state of business cycle, means when there is boom, there are more profits, and when there is depression, there are less profits or maybe losses. Tend to be high beta firms. Thus, you should demand a higher rate of return from investment whose performance is strongly tied to the performance of the economy. Operating leverages. We have already seen that financial leverage, in other words, the commitment to fixed debt charges, increase the beta of investors' portfolio. In just the same way, operating leverage, in other words, the commitment to fixed production charges, must add to the beta of a capital project. Now the next part, project evaluation under risk and uncertainty. Certainty is a state of nature which arises when outcomes in terms of cash flows are known and determined. For example, if one invests rupees 20,000 in 5 yearly government bonds, which is expected to yield 7% tax returns, then the return on the investment at 7% can be estimated quite precisely. Thus, the outcome is known to have probability of 1. Means it is certain that there will be a return, and return will be 7%, and that also tax-free. This is certainty. Risk involves situations in which the probability of cash flows occurring are known, and these probabilities are objectively or subjectively determinable. The main attribute of this situation is that the event is repetitive in nature and possesses a frequency distribution. It is the inability to predict with perfect knowledge the course of future events that introduces risk. In contrast, when an event is not repetitive and is unique in character, and the finance minister is not sure about probabilities of cash flows themselves, uncertainty is said to prevail. Uncertainty is subjective phenomenon. In such a situation, no observation can be drawn from frequency distributions. Measurement of project risk. The first point in this is probability distribution. The problem of project risk. As noted, riskiness of an investment project is the variability of its cash flows from those that are expected. The greater the variability, the riskier project is said to be. For each project under consideration, we can make estimates of the future cash flows rather than estimate only the most likely cash flows outcome for each year in the future. We estimate a number of possible outcomes. In this way, we are able to consider the range of possible cash flows for a particular future period rather than just the most likely cash flow. Total project risk. If investors and creditors are risk averse and all available evidence suggests that they are, it is necessary for management to incorporate the risk of an investment proposal into its analysis of the proposal's worth. Otherwise, capital budgeting decisions are unlikely to be in accord with the objective of maximizing share price. Having established the need for taking risk into account, we proceed to measure it for individual investment proposals. But remember that the riskiness of a stream of cash flows for a project can and often does change with the length of time in the future that the flows occur. In other words, the probability distributions are not necessarily the same from one period to the next. Second is sensitivity analysis. Sensitivity analysis begins with a base case situation based on expected values. The values for unit sales, sales price, fixed cost, and variable cost are the expected or base case values. Now we ask a series of what if questions. For example, what if sales quantity is 20% below the expected level? What if sales prices fall? What if variable costs are 70% of total sales rather than expected 65%? Sensitivity analysis is designed to provide the decision maker with answers to questions such as these. In a sensitivity analysis, we change each variable by a specific percentage above and below the base case values. For example, if the variable costs are 70% of total sales rather than expected 65%, we may predict that the change will be slightly less than the base value. And we calculate new net present values, holding other things constant, and then plot the derived net present values against the variable in questions. We present the full data so that the managers may take the correct decisions. Scenario analysis. Although sensitivity analysis is widely used in industries, it does have limitation. Consider, for example, a proposed coal mine whose net present value is highly sensitive to changes in both output and sale price. However, if a utility company has contracted to buy most of the mine's output at a fixed price per ton plus inflation adjustments, then the mining venture may not be very risky in spite of the steep sensitivity lines. In general, a project's risk depends on both. Number one, its sensitivity to changes in key variables, and number two, the range of likely values of these variables as reflected in their probability distributions. Because sensitivity analysis considers only the first factor, it is incomplete. A risk analysis techniques which considers both the sensitivity of net present value to changes in key variables and also the range of likely variable values is scenario analysis. Here the operating executives pick a bad set of circumstances, low unit sales, low sales price, high variable cost per unit, high construction cost, and so on, and a good set. The net present value under the bad and good conditions would be calculated and compared to the expected or base case net present value. To carry out the scenario analysis, we use the worst case variable values to obtain the worst case net present value and the best case variable values to obtain the best case net present value. Fourth one, Monte Carlo simulation. Monte Carlo simulation, so named because this type of analysis grew out of work on the mathematics of casino gambling. Ties together sensitivities and input variable probability distributions. However, simulation requires a relatively sophisticated computer coupled with an efficient financial planning software package. While scenario analysis can be done using a handheld calculator. The fifth one is decision tree analysis. Many capital budgeting decisions are not made at a single point in time. Rather, they consist of two or more sequential decisions which are made as the project progresses through stages. For example, suppose ABC is considering the production of a product X for some other company. The capital budgeting decision for this project will be broken down into three stages. Stage 1, time period 0. Conduct a rupees 5 lakh study of the market potential for this product X. Stage 2, if it appears that a sizable market for this product X does exist, then at T1, time period 1, spend rupees 10 lakhs, 1 million to design and fabricate several prototype of product X. And stage 3, if reaction to the prototype product X is good, then at time period 2, build a production plant with a net cost of rupees 10 million. If this stage were reached, the net payoff is expected to be either rupees 13 million or rupees 16 million, depending on the state of the economy, competition, and so forth. Now, the next part is long term financing decisions. Financing through domestic capital markets. Economic growth implies a long term rise in per capita national output. The basic conditions determining the rate of growth are effort, capital, and knowledge. Among these, capital formation has been recognized as the most crucial factor in the economic growth of the developing countries. Capital formation implies the diversion of the productive capacity of the economy to the making of capital goods, which increase future productivity capacity. The process of capital formation thus involves transfer of savings from those who have them in the hands of those who invest the same for productive purposes. The mechanism includes a wide variety of institutions. These institutions are generally grouped into money market and capital market. Means the first one is money market. Money market comprises those financial institutions that cater to the notions of savers who prefer high liquidity and safety, along with decent returns, and provide working capital to trade and industries, mainly in the forms of loans and advances. Thus, money market is a reservoir of short-term funds. Second is capital market. Capital market is the place where the medium-term and long-term financial needs of business and other sectors of the economy are met by financial institutions, which supply medium and long-term funds to borrowers. The capital market is composed of primary market and secondary market. Secondary market is also known as stock market, including stock exchanges. Methods of procuring finance. A company can raise funds through capital markets by issuing the financial securities. A financial security is a legal document that represents a claim on the issuer. Depending upon the market conditions and financing strategies, the issuers adopt different methods. The first is equity shares. Equity shares represent the owner's equity. Its holders are residual owners who have unrestricted claim on income and assets, and who enjoy all the voting power in the company and thus can control the affairs of the company. They are the real owner of the company. Equity share capital is also known as risk capital, as the equity shareholders are exposed to greater amount of risk. Means in case there are losses, these losses are to be borne by the equity shares. If anyhow the company goes into liquidation, there is insolvency, the equity shareholders will get nothing. Means they are at high risk. But at the same time, they have greater opportunities for getting higher returns. Means the higher returns as well as lower returns, more and more profits as well as losses. They are to be borne by the equity shareholders. Preference shares. Preference shares are those which carry certain preferential rights as compared to other securities. The preference shareholders have the right to get dividend at a fixed rate prior to any other class of shareholders. Similarly, the preference shareholders get repayment of capital before any other class of shareholders get. Any other class means equity shareholders. It when the company is liquidated. Debentures. Debentures are one of the principal sources of funds to meet long-term financial needs of companies. Though there is no specific definition of debenture, according to the Companies Act 2013, the word debenture includes debenture stock, bonds, and any other securities of a company. Thus, a debenture is widely understood as a document issued by a company as evidence of debt to the holder, usually arising out of loan and mostly secured by a charge. Bonds. A bond is a creditorship security whereby a company obtains money from the lenders for a promise to pay the stipulated rate of interest at specified intervals and to repay the principal on maturity. And they get the principal sum on maturity, which is also mentioned in the agreement. Bondholders have a prior claim on the receipt of the interest and repayment of the principal over other creditors of the company. Bonds are of different types, like secured and unsecured. Bearer means where the name of the person holding is not written on the bonds. Whoever has got the bond, he is the owner of the bond. Perpetual bonds, which will go on. Sinking fund bonds, especially for a particular liability. Zero coupon bonds, convertible bonds, and floating rate bonds, etc. Secured premium notes. The Tata Iron and Steel Company was the first corporate to issue secured promissory notes on rights basis. The main features of SPN as issued by TISCO are as follows. The face value of a SPN was rupees 300, and no interest will become due or accrue during the first 3 years after allotment. Therefore, each SPN will be repaid in four equal annual installments of rupees 75 from the end of the fourth year, together with an equal amount of rupees 75 with each installment, which will consist of a mix of interest and premium on redemption. Further, each SPN will have a warrant attached to it, which will give the holder right to apply or seek allotment of one's share, equity shares at rupees 80 per share. That's all. Thank you. Namaskar. क्या पेन दीजिएगा फोन भी चाहिए होगा फोन इसमें होगा पेन देकर तो निशान लेना रजिस्टर पे करिए तब तक